Belle Gunness, often referred to as Hell's Belle, remains one of the most infamous figures in American crime history. Born Brynhild Paulsdatter Storseth on November 11, 1859, in Selbu, Norway, her story is a chilling reminder of the darkness that can lurk beneath a seemingly ordinary exterior. Her life is a gruesome tale of deceit, greed, and murder, spanning continents and claiming the lives of over a dozen victims. Belle grew up in a small, impoverished farming community in Norway. At a young age, she dreamed of a better life, one far removed from the harsh realities of her upbringing. In 1881, at the age of 22, she immigrated to the United States, settling in Chicago, Illinois, where she adopted the name Belle. She married her first husband, Mads Sorensen, in 1884, and the couple opened a candy store together. However, their business struggled, and shortly after taking out an insurance policy, the store mysteriously burned down. They collected the insurance payout and moved on, but tragedy struck again in 1900 when Mads died under suspicious circumstances. His death was attributed to heart failure, but it conveniently occurred on the day both of his life insurance policies overlapped, allowing Belle to claim a substantial sum of money. After Mads' death, Belle relocated to La Porte, Indiana, where she purchased a 42-acre farm. There, her true reign of terror began. Belle placed matrimonial ads in newspapers, seeking wealthy suitors. She promised companionship, a prosperous life, and love. Men from across the country responded to her ads, many of whom arrived at her farm with large sums of cash or other valuables. They were never seen again. Belle's methods were cold and calculating. When her suitors arrived, she would either poison their meals or kill them outright with a blunt instrument. She then disposed of their bodies, burying them on her property or feeding them to her pigs. Over time, suspicions grew as more men disappeared after visiting Belle's farm. However, her charm and apparent innocence kept local authorities and neighbors from investigating thoroughly. In addition to her victims from matrimonial schemes, Belle's own family was not spared her ruthlessness. Her second husband, Peter Gunness, also met a mysterious end. He died in 1908, supposedly after a sausage grinder fell on his head. Despite the implausible explanation, Belle collected his life insurance payout. Neighbors whispered about Belle's dark tendencies, but concrete evidence was hard to come by. The horrors of Belle Gunness' crimes came to light in April 1908, after her farmhouse burned down in a suspicious fire. Among the ruins, authorities discovered the charred bodies of Belle's 3 foster children and a headless adult corpse believed to be Belle herself. However, doubts arose when some witnesses claimed the body didn't match Belle's physical description. As authorities searched the property, they unearthed the remains of at least 11 victims buried in shallow graves around the farm. The gruesome discoveries shocked the nation. Items belonging to her suitors were found in her home, confirming her murderous schemes. But despite the mounting evidence, Belle herself had vanished, leaving her ultimate fate a mystery. Some believe Belle faked her death and escaped to start a new life elsewhere, while others think she may have fallen victim to one of her own schemes. The truth remains unknown. What is certain, however, is that Belle Gunness left behind a legacy of terror, with the true number of her victims still a matter of speculation. Estimates suggest she may have killed over 40 people during her lifetime. Belle Gunness' story has inspired countless books, movies, and documentaries, cementing her place as one of history's most enigmatic and terrifying figures. Her tale is a chilling reminder of how greed and cruelty can drive a person to unimaginable depths of depravity. Whether she died in that farmhouse fire or lived on in anonymity, Belle's name remains synonymous with the darkest corners of human nature. The aftermath of Belle Gunness' reign of terror was as baffling as her life itself. Following the discovery of a headless body in the burnt-out ruins of her farmhouse, forensic analysis in 1908 was rudimentary at best. While many assumed the body was Belle's, others pointed out inconsistencies, such as the corpse's height and weight not matching Belle's known physical description. Some witnesses, including farmhand Ray Lamphere, hinted that Belle had meticulously planned the fire to fake her death and escape prosecution. Ray Lamphere, a key figure in the unraveling of Belle's crimes, had worked on her farm and reportedly had a romantic relationship with her. After their falling out, Belle accused him of being mentally unstable and a threat to her safety, going as far as having him arrested for trespassing. This legal conflict seemed calculated, as it conveniently aligned with her plans to vanish. After the fire, Lamphere was arrested again, this time accused of arson and murder. During his trial, Lamphere maintained his innocence regarding the murders, but suggested that Belle had orchestrated the entire scheme, including faking her death. He claimed she had hired a woman to pose as her, killed the decoy, and fled the scene. Lamphier's testimony, though compelling, left many unanswered questions. Authorities searched extensively for Belle, but found no definitive evidence of her survival. Over the years, numerous sightings of Belle were reported across the United States, but none were confirmed. Some theorized she had fled to her native Norway, while others believed she blended into American society under a new identity. Without modern forensic technology, her fate remained one of the most tantalizing mysteries of the early 20th century. The psychological profile of Belle Gunness also became a subject of fascination for criminologists and psychologists. Her ability to lure victims with promises of love and prosperity while hiding her dark intentions pointed to a deeply manipulative and remorseless personality. Many experts speculated that Belle might have been a sociopath, driven by greed and a lack of empathy. Her methodical planning, her ability to charm others, and her cold detachment from the horrific acts she committed painted the picture of a woman entirely devoid of conscience. Belle's story continues to intrigue and horrify, not only because of the sheer number of her victims, but also due to the enigma surrounding her disappearance. Her case inspired urban legends, ghost stories, and even speculative fiction. The farmhouse site in La Porte, Indiana, became a macabre tourist attraction for a time, with curious visitors seeking to glimpse the ground that once held the remains of her victims. In modern pop culture, Belle Gunness is often depicted as a symbol of the duality of human nature, the seemingly kind and nurturing exterior hiding a predator's heart. Her life serves as a grim reminder that evil can wear a familiar face, and her story continues to captivate those drawn to the darker corners of history. Ultimately, the legacy of Belle Gunness is one of horror, mystery, and unanswered questions. Was she a cunning criminal mastermind who escaped justice, or did she meet her end in the fire she may have started herself? We may never know for sure, but her name will forever remain etched in the annals of American crime history as one of the most chilling figures to ever walk among us. Despite over a century passing since her infamous crimes, the shadow of Belle Gunness looms large in the realms of criminal history and unsolved mysteries. The discovery of human remains on her property brought closure to the families of some victims, but left countless others wondering if their loved ones had fallen into her deadly trap. The farm, once a bustling property, became a haunting symbol of her evil deeds, known locally as the Murder Farm. Efforts to unravel the full scope of her crimes continued for decades. Local legends claim that Belle was far more prolific than even the grisly discoveries suggested. Some speculated that she had accomplices who might have helped her dispose of victims or shielded her from suspicion. Ray Lamphir, the disgruntled farmhand, played a central role in these theories. Though he died in prison in 1909, his claims that Belle meticulously planned her crimes added fuel to the mystery. Modern forensic science eventually provided some insights, but failed to resolve the core questions about Belle's fate. In 2007, researchers attempted to extract DNA from the headless body found in the farmhouse fire to compare it to DNA from a known descendant of Belle's sister. Unfortunately, the samples were too degraded to provide conclusive results. The mystery of whether the body belonged to Belle or a decoy hired in her place persisted. Belle Gunness' story continues to be a chilling case study for criminologists and students of psychology. She represents the extreme end of a Black Widow archetype, someone who uses charm, deception, and murder to achieve financial gain. What made Belle particularly unique was the sheer scale of her crimes and the deliberate, calculated manner in which she committed them. Unlike many killers driven by impulse or personal vendettas, Belle's motives were coldly financial, and she preyed on the vulnerability of her victims with ruthless efficiency. The media coverage of Belle Gunness during her time and in the years since has played a significant role in her lasting infamy. Newspapers sensationalized her crimes, describing her as a female fiend and a woman monster. Such portrayals not only horrified the public, but also cemented her place as a figure of morbid fascination. Books, films, and documentaries have continued to explore her life, speculating on her motivations and the true extent of her murderous spree. For the people of La Porte, Indiana, the Gunness farm remains a part of local lore. While the farmhouse no longer stands, stories of ghostly apparitions and eerie occurrences persist, drawing the curious and the brave to the area. To this day, Belle Gunness is a subject of study, storytelling, and even fear, as her legend bridges the gap between history and horror. The case of Belle Gunness challenges us to confront uncomfortable truths about human nature. She appeared, at least on the surface, as a hardworking immigrant building a life in America. Yet beneath that facade lay a woman capable of unimaginable cruelty, willing to destroy lives for personal gain. Her story reminds us that monsters can sometimes hide in plain sight, and the veneer of normalcy can conceal the most sinister intentions. Whether she perished in the flames of her farmhouse or lived on in anonymity, Belle Gunness' story endures as one of the darkest and most perplexing chapters in the history of crime. The unanswered questions surrounding her life and death only deepen the intrigue, ensuring that Hell's Belle will forever haunt the collective imagination. The ongoing fascination with Belle Gunness is fueled not only by the gruesome nature of her crimes, but also by the enduring mysteries surrounding her disappearance and true motivations. Speculation about her fate has taken on an almost mythical quality, with theories ranging from plausible to fantastical. Some researchers believe Belle carefully planned every step of her escape, knowing that local authorities were beginning to connect the dots between her missing suitors and the suspicious activity at her farm. The fire that consumed her farmhouse may have been her final act of misdirection. By leaving behind a decapitated body, she could convincingly stage her own death while vanishing into obscurity. Witness reports from the time noted sightings of a woman matching Belle's description boarding trains in nearby towns, adding credence to the idea that she fled the area. Other theories suggest she may have sought refuge in a place where her notoriety wouldn't reach, such as remote areas of the United States or even her native Norway. However, no confirmed evidence has ever surfaced to prove these claims. If she did escape, she likely had significant resources to fund her new life, as many of her victims arrived with substantial sums of money and valuables that were never recovered. The headless body found in the ruins of her farmhouse is another point of debate. Some believe Belle murdered another woman and mutilated the body to stage her own death. Others argue that the fire consumed Belle herself, and the discrepancy in the body's size was simply a miscalculation. Modern forensic analysis could provide answers, but the degraded condition of the remains has so far thwarted attempts at conclusive DNA testing. As time passes, Belle Gunness has become more than a historical figure. She's a symbol of mystery and evil that has transcended her own story. She has been immortalized in folklore as a cautionary tale about the dangers of unchecked greed and deception. Her ability to manipulate, charm, and kill with such calculated precision continues to make her a figure of morbid curiosity. Pop culture has embraced Belle's story, using it as inspiration for novels, films, and television shows exploring themes of betrayal and hidden darkness. In these portrayals, Belle is often depicted as a cunning mastermind who outwits everyone around her. While the real Belle Gunness was undoubtedly a ruthless killer, her larger-than-life reputation has taken on a life of its own. For criminologists, her case remains a fascinating study in human psychology and behavior. Belle's crimes highlight the darker side of human ambition and the lengths some will go to in pursuit of wealth and power. She was not driven by passion or anger, but by cold, calculated greed, which makes her crimes all the more chilling. Her ability to hide her true nature, even from those closest to her, underscores the complexity of her character and the dangers of underestimating someone based on appearances. Even now, amateur sleuths and professional investigators occasionally revisit the Belle Gunness case, hoping to uncover new clues about her life and the full extent of her crimes. Advances in forensic science, such as DNA analysis and digital archiving of historical records, may one day provide answers. Until then, the legend of Belle Gunness continues to captivate and terrify, a grim reminder of the depths of human depravity and the mysteries that sometimes remain unsolved. The story of Belle Gunness also serves as a reflection of the era in which she lived. The late 19th and early 20th centuries were a time of significant social upheaval in America, marked by the influx of immigrants seeking better lives, rapid industrialization, and the emergence of a more interconnected society. Belle's ability to exploit the vulnerabilities of her victims, lonely men responding to her matrimonial ads, demonstrates how she manipulated the social structures of the time. Her crimes occurred in an era before modern investigative tools, which undoubtedly contributed to her ability to operate for so long without detection. Background checks were non-existent, fingerprinting was in its infancy, and communication between law enforcement agencies was limited. This lack of coordination and technological advancement allowed Belle to lure victims from far and wide without arousing immediate suspicion. One haunting aspect of Belle's story is how easily she was able to appear as a respectable member of her community. To her neighbors, she was a hardworking farmer and a devoted mother who occasionally fell on hard times. Few could have imagined the horrors concealed behind her charming facade. This duality is a recurring theme in tales of infamous criminals, and is perhaps one of the reasons Belle's story has endured for over a century. People are fascinated and terrified, by the idea that someone who seems so ordinary could commit such extraordinary evil. The discovery of her victims also introduced a macabre twist to the narrative. Among the buried bodies were men who had traveled great distances, often leaving behind families to meet Belle. Letters exchanged between Belle and her suitors revealed how she ensnared them with promises of love and a prosperous future. These letters, often written in affectionate tones, contrast sharply with the fate that awaited those who fell for her deception. The very tools of connection and communication, the ads and letters, became instruments of her deadly schemes. The pigs on Belle's farm also play a chilling role in her legend. Local folklore suggests that some of her victims were fed to hogs, a grisly detail that adds a layer of horror to her crimes. While this claim remains unverified, it has become an indelible part of the Belle Gunness mythos, symbolizing her complete disregard for human life and her willingness to use any means to cover her tracks. The psychological dimension of Belle's actions has been a topic of endless analysis. Many theorists argue that Belle's upbringing in poverty and her immigration to America fueled an insatiable desire for wealth and security, driving her to kill without remorse. Others suggest that her crimes were not solely about money, but also a pathological need for control and domination. Whatever her true motivations, her actions reveal a chilling capacity for calculated cruelty. As the decades have passed, Belle Gunness has become a spectral figure in the annals of American crime. The unresolved questions about her fate continue to inspire debate and investigation. Could she have lived out her remaining years in anonymity, watching from the shadows as the world debated her legacy? Or did she perish in the flames of her farmhouse, a victim of her own dark machinations? The fascination with Belle Gunness extends beyond her crimes and into the broader questions of morality, justice, and the nature of evil. Her story is not just a tale of murder, but also a study of human vulnerability, deception, and the limits of trust. It serves as a reminder of how easily darkness can lurk behind a seemingly ordinary life, and how the search for truth, no matter how elusive, remains a fundamental part of the human experience. In the end, Belle Gunness leaves us with more questions than answers, a shadowy figure whose life and crimes have defied resolution. Whether remembered as a cunning mastermind, a tragic product of her time, or a symbol of unbridled greed, her story remains one of the most chilling chapters in the history of crime. As long as the mystery of her fate endures, the legend of Hell's Belle will continue to haunt the collective imagination. As Belle Gunness' story continues to echo through the corridors of history, it has evolved into something larger than a simple tale of crime. Her legacy is intertwined with our fascination with the unknown, the macabre, and the complex psychology of those who commit heinous acts. The unanswered questions about her fate and the true extent of her crimes ensure that her name will always spark curiosity and unease. For residents of La Porte, Indiana, the Belle Gunness case remains a grim yet integral part of local lore. While the town has modernized and moved forward, the legend of the murder farm lingers. Tours, historical reenactments, and ghost stories keep her memory alive, often blending fact with fiction. Local historians and enthusiasts frequently revisit the case, examining old records and sharing theories about what really happened on that infamous property. The broader cultural impact of Belle Gunness is undeniable. She represents the archetype of the Black Widow, a woman who uses charm and manipulation to ensnare her victims. Her crimes also highlight the dangers of unchecked greed and the human tendency to exploit trust for personal gain. Over the years, Belle has become a dark cautionary figure, warning of the perils of superficial appearances and blind faith in others. True crime enthusiasts, criminologists, and psychologists alike continue to study Belle Gunness as an example of a female serial killer operating with an efficiency and scale that was rare for her time. Her ability to evade capture for so long, despite growing suspicions, speaks to her intelligence and the systemic gaps in law enforcement during the early 20th century. These gaps, limited communication, primitive forensic methods, and societal biases, allowed someone like Belle to thrive in her criminal endeavors. One of the most enduring elements of Belle's story is the sheer audacity of her escape plan, assuming she did indeed survive the fire. Faking one's death so convincingly, especially in an era without modern technology, would have required meticulous planning and nerves of steel. If she succeeded, it would make her one of the most cunning criminals in history. On the other hand, if she perished in the fire, her decision to take her own life along with the lives of her children adds a deeply tragic layer to her story, suggesting a descent into desperation or madness. For victims' families, the lack of closure has been the most haunting aspect of the case. Some descendants of Belle's known victims continue to seek answers, hoping to uncover the full truth of what happened to their ancestors. This unresolved grief adds a human dimension to the tale, reminding us that Belle's actions were not just historical events, but real tragedies that shattered lives and families. The rise of modern technology has opened new avenues for exploring the Belle Gunness case. Digital archives, advancements in DNA testing, and the ability to crowdsource historical research have reignited interest in uncovering the full story. While definitive answers may remain elusive, these tools offer hope that some of the lingering mysteries might one day be resolved. Ultimately, Belle Gunness is a figure who forces us to confront uncomfortable truths about the human condition. She was a product of her time, a woman who, faced with hardship and opportunity, chose a path of deception and violence. Yet her story transcends her era, resonating with universal themes of greed, manipulation, and the thin line between trust and betrayal. Whether she met her end in the fire or lived on to plot her next scheme, Belle Gunness' story remains a chilling reminder of the darkness that can dwell in the human heart. Her legacy endures as one of America's most haunting and enigmatic crime stories, a tale that continues to captivate and horrify in equal measure. As the legend of Belle Gunness persists, the fascination with her story continues to fuel debates, inspire creative works, and serve as a grim study of humanity's capacity for evil. Her name remains synonymous with the archetype of a cunning and ruthless killer, but the layers of her story reflect a more complex narrative about human vulnerability, societal limitations, and the enduring allure of the unexplained. The lack of closure surrounding Belle's fate has allowed her story to become a blank canvas for speculation and interpretation. Some modern researchers suggest that she may have been aided in her escape by accomplices who had knowledge of her crimes or shared in the spoils of her schemes. This theory posits that Belle could not have carried out her murders alone, especially given the physical labor required to dispose of so many bodies. If this is true, it raises further questions about how far her influence extended and whether others shared in her guilt. Forensic advancements have reignited interest in the possibility of finally identifying the headless body found in the ruins of her farmhouse. New DNA analysis methods could potentially yield results from degraded samples, especially as techniques for recovering genetic material from historical remains improve. Descendants of Belle's known relatives have expressed willingness to provide DNA for comparison, and the prospect of solving this mystery remains tantalizing. Yet, even if the body is proven to be Belle's, questions about her life and crimes will likely remain unanswered. Cultural depictions of Belle have expanded her legacy into the realm of myth. She has been portrayed in books, films, and documentaries as everything from a tragic anti-hero to a calculating villain. These portrayals often explore the motivations behind her actions, speculating whether her upbringing, hardships, or psychological disorders played a role in her descent into murder. Some works have even romanticized her story, framing her as a misunderstood figure in a male-dominated world, though this interpretation is controversial given the horrific nature of her crimes. One of the most compelling aspects of Belle's story is how it blurs the line between reality and folklore. In La Porte, her name is whispered in ghost stories and local legends, with many claiming that her spirit haunts the land where her farmhouse once stood. These tales serve both as entertainment and as a reminder of the real-life horrors that unfolded there. The site of the former Gunness farm has become a place of macabre curiosity, drawing visitors who hope to connect with the dark history of one of America's most notorious killers. For those studying criminal behavior, Belle Gunness remains a fascinating subject. As one of the few documented female serial killers of her time, her case challenges traditional assumptions about gender and crime. While male serial killers are often driven by motives such as domination, sexual gratification, or rage, Belle's crimes appear to have been rooted in cold financial calculation. This distinction has made her a unique case study in the annals of criminology. Belle's ability to manipulate and exploit her victims speaks to her skill as a predator. She understood the vulnerabilities of the men she targeted, often widowers or lonely bachelors, and used her desire for companionship against them. Her use of personal ads to lure victims was innovative for her time and underscores the dangers of trusting strangers, a cautionary theme that resonates even in the modern era of online relationships. As her story continues to captivate, it serves as a mirror reflecting our ongoing fascination with true crime and the darker aspects of human nature. The unanswered questions about Belle Gunness compel us to seek closure, not just for her victims and their families, but for the mystery itself. Her tale stands as a stark reminder of the fragility of trust, the dangers of unchecked ambition, and the chilling reality that evil can wear an ordinary face. In the end, Belle Gunness remains a haunting figure, a woman who defied the conventions of her time, not to achieve greatness, but to commit acts of unspeakable horror. Whether remembered as a criminal mastermind, a desperate fugitive, or a specter of legend, her story continues to resonate, ensuring that Hell's Belle will never be forgotten.